is Ryan Horsley. His picture apparently was just not qualifying to make the cut. So, but we both work at Advanced Drainage Systems, and by show of hands, is anybody aware of the company Advanced Drainage Systems? Wow, that's actually more than I expected, I'll be honest. The company's been around for a while. We'll talk about that in a minute, but both Ryan and I have been here in Utah in a sales capacity for a while, and it's given us some great exposure to land development industry, mostly here in Utah, and we're going to speak a little bit about that today. Again, the company has been around since the mid-60s, and the way Advanced Drainage Systems came to be was farmers in the Midwest trying to find a better way to install tiling for their farms. Anybody familiar with farm tiling and what that is? Put your hands up. Okay, that is surprising. I thought somebody here would be from Ohio or Illinois or someplace where they farm. But so farm tiling is underground piping that is used to get the water out of the ground so that the crops can grow without the roots being too saturated. That's really where ADS got their start, and over decades we've innovated and added more and more product lines, and our core products are all made out of plastic versus other maybe more traditional materials like concrete or steel or whatever. But I don't want to focus so heavily on our company today, but I want to focus on what our company believes, what Ryan and I believe, and what I think will be a big part of your future, regardless of what path any of you might take in your civil engineering careers. So, innovation, what is that? Who knows what this is a picture of? Just take a guess. A manhole cover, is that what you said? Okay, what is it made out of? Cast iron. Usually that is the case. So this is not an ADS product, by the way. I was just last week down at a conference in St. George, and I came across this vendor who is making traffic-rated lids out of plastic. So this could be in the middle of I-15, theoretically speaking. And it's made out of plastic. Isn't that great? I think there's a lot of advantages to innovation and realizing that a laborer might not have to carry. I mean, if this was made out of cast iron, it'd probably weigh close to 100 pounds or something. It'd be very difficult to pick up and handle and carry. Plastic lid probably weighs 5 pounds. So think of those types of advantages. But all of these products that we make and all these innovations in the industry point toward kind of one common goal that I want to talk about today, and that is sustainability. Does somebody want to tell me, because I'm sure you guys will talk about this here and there, what is a good definition of sustainability? I want this to be interactive, so I want to see hands up. I want you guys to tell me where I'm wrong, because I usually am. In the very back.
Okay, meeting the needs of the present without depleting the needs of the future.
I like that. Did everybody hear that? Say it one more time, real loud.
Meeting the needs of the present without depleting the needs of the future.
Okay. I don't know if that's Webster, but it sounds Webster. It's really nice. So what is sustainability? If that's the definition, what is sustainability? What does it mean to you guys? Okay? Okay. More specifically, what are the considerations? Cost effective, material considerations, and so forth. Okay. What else?
Environmentally friendly is also part of sustainability.
Environmentally friendly.
Meets current and future demands.
Meeting current and future demands. I'm going to say that's an economic consideration, right? Okay, I saw some hands.
Yeah, you're also going to be able to pass on the knowledge of how to run the system.
Okay, that's a very good point. I hadn't thought of that. Very nice.
The social aspect has got to be friendly to all people.
At least to the users, right? Okay.
I was gonna say low maintenance.
Low maintenance, that's a great answer. Okay, so we've kind of talked about environmental considerations. So there's a nice picture, I believe that's Los Angeles. I grew up in Southern California, and the air pollution is world renowned there. You can actually chew the air, or at least several years and decades ago you could. Believe it or not, LA has done a lot to clean up their air, and it shows. But yeah, we need to think about environmental considerations. We talked about economic considerations. We talked about social considerations, so meeting the needs of the users. And I show this picture just because neighborhoods these days are not developed the same way they were 20, 30, 50 years ago. Most cities want their developers to include runways and walkways and parks, running paths, bicycle lanes, whatever. So that's a big part of the social aspect. We're going to spend all this money. Let's add to the quality of life and get the most bang for our buck in this development. You agree? Okay. And ultimately, we've started talking about sustainability because we realize that in the past, a lot of human innovations and practices have had very negative short-term and long-term effects. And so sustainability then says, let's mitigate those negative impacts and effects and embrace, if you will, everything that we can out of this opportunity and make the most of an effort being expended or dollars being expended. So, anybody want to add to that? Any thoughts to share? Ryan? Okay. Is that? Amen, he says. All right. I came up with this definition. It's kind of stolen and then a few words changed and inserted, but the long-term endurance of systems and processes. And I guess you could add on there with regard to economics and social implications and environmental concerns and so forth. But I found this really nice Venn diagram. Do you guys still use Venn diagrams? So it's like a thing a while ago. I just researched it on Google and I found about 50 of them, and I like this one the most. It hits the 3 points we've already talked about. It says, to find that optimal sustainability position, you have to have a good mix of social, economic, and environmental considerations. And address those considerations, not ignore them and have a board say, oh, we don't care about that. You have to push for it, right? And those considerations, they have to be bearable. What does that mean? What does it mean to be bearable?
Losses are acceptable.
There you go. Okay. Thank you. What does it mean to be viable? Possible or feasible, right? And finally, equitable. That's kind of a weird one, but what do we even think equitable means in the first place? Okay. So
equitable is like
okay. Okay. So it has to have maybe a financial or an economic advantage in the end. Otherwise, why are we even doing it, right? So with those considerations, given with those limitations on being bearable, viable, equitable, we can find sustainable solutions. There's a lot of communities and towns and buildings and everything you guys think about and talk about every day where this is becoming more and more of a key discussion. But 10 years ago, people would say, who really cares? Let's just build the thing, we'll make our money, we'll get out of here, we're done. So who should care? And why? I want some answers on that.
Everyone should care, because what we do affects everyone.
Okay? So if I'm a business owner and I'm saying, hey, that parcel of land is perfect for my chemical processing factory, should I really care about the neighbors around it. Maybe it's surrounded by residences and homes and an elementary school or two. Why should I care? If I have the right to develop that, should I care what the other people think?
I think yes, because, well, just 10 years ago versus now, I think we're developing more and more into an interdependent. Just because of the global market, people are more just connected in general, so we can't just be independent in our decisions. We have to ask more about the business of other technologies.
I agree with that personally, okay? I don't know that there's a yes or no or right or wrong answer to my question, and I kind of put some response in, is it? I think the answer is, well, maybe, you know, but let's look at all the considerations, and hopefully in that town where this guy wants to build his chemical processing factory, they've developed some reasonable zoning so that it wouldn't even be, well, legal to build a chemical processing plant in the middle of a residential community. So, who cares? Well, we should all care. And I found this little graphic, which I thought was interesting. So this is a graph of the population growth rate of the entire world. It appears to be in decline, yet still firmly in positive territory, which means more people are being born than are dying. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's the way it is. Obviously, we have a projection there, and it's pretty smooth downward. But ultimately, population is still growing, right? I just got a little math tutorial while I was waiting to set up here. They're doing integrals and stuff. So I'm pretty sure that blue is the area under the curve, the integral of the population growth rate. Is that correct? Okay. It's been a long time since I did any serious math, I'm not going to lie. So obviously we have a whole lot of growing population, right? We have billions upon billions of people already here, and by the year 2100, we're nearly going to double that. And so we have a limited number of resources for a huge growing number of people and overall population of the world. Our resources are being strained. And that's why we should all care, because for our long-term future sustainability, we're going to have to be smarter with the resources that we have. Does anybody disagree? Do you guys talk about sustainability in your classes at all? Is there a planning class? Or? Okay, what are some of the finer points you guys hit?
Engineering economics.
Engineering economics, money, okay.
Paper versus plastic.
I'm sorry, speak up.
Paper versus plastic.
Paper versus plastic. Interesting. I have to have that dilemma every time I go to the store, like paper, plastic. I don't know. Just pick one. It's either trees or pollution. You know, they could be bags, but. So I'm glad that it's being discussed, and I'm glad that it's in the collegiate level being discussed, because quite frankly, I think we're behind the curve in the discussion. I can't remember when ASC gave this report card. I believe that it was 2010, you know? 2010. And this is our people, ASCE, grading the quality of America's infrastructure. You see everything on there. You see schools, and the quality of our drinking water, and our infrastructure, and our waterways, and how we deal with our wastewater. It looks a lot like my BYU report card, so I can tell you there's a lot of room for improvement. There's a lot of room for improvement here, and in our world, we see this actually in reality every single day. Okay? So think about that for a minute. You guys are out there driving cars or a bus or whatever over roads that have these kinds of grades on them. And I'm not trying to tell you not to go for a drive, take it that way, but understanding that for the future, we're going to have to catch this up, because sooner or later, yes, those pipes are going to start degrading, or that road is going to need to be ripped up and replaced, or that bridge is going to have to be torn down and replaced, whatever it may be. And who's that going to affect? That's going to affect every taxpayer for sure, right? It's going to affect you on your drive to work. It's going to affect you when you're trying to run your future children back and forth to their various activities. And you got to take the long route instead of the short route. These are big things, actually, that will play into your everyday life. And America, quite frankly, is behind. So with an eye towards sustainability, how can we fix this? Is sustainability the answer to these poor grades? Why? I heard someone. Who was it? Put your hand up. You? All right. You say yes. Why do you agree?
Well, I think sustainability could be a solution. I think that sustainability, kind of like we've been discussing, is just making projects that can, last for a while in this developing world that we have that has more needs than just economic needs. And so, yeah.
Okay.
I think on top of that, one of the things that ASCE is requesting whenever they put out these report cards is for large investments into infrastructure. And I think that if sufficient financial investment was made in infrastructure, then yeah, we could definitely improve some of these grades.
Okay. So let's just talk about this in an open discussion. I don't know who in here is a structural focused student or a water resources or whatever, right? I want you guys to tell me where you see an opportunity to implement a sustainable activity in your area of study. Starting here.
So just one thing I've noticed too is that
I'm going to stop you and just ask you to turn the volume up so everybody can hear.
So University Parkway, the road we've got going down there, they just barely finished pouring the asphalt on it last year, and it's terrible. It's already drained, so like if you hit them with your car, you're gonna flip that over if you don't do it fast. It's not leveled, nothing's right. It's like, I get that and that. The problem with that is it's not sustainable, and because we get to it right the first time, we're gonna have to come back and do it. So if we put a little bit more effort in it first, get it right the first time, if we don't have to come back and fix it.
Okay, so I think that would probably apply to every area of study, right? Get it right the first time. So just a little bit of insight into what we do. We have contractors from all over the state sending us plans and saying, give us a quantity takeoff and give us a price estimate for storm drain materials on this project. And I don't know, what would you say, 30, 40, 50% of the time at least, I'm looking at these plans, and the quality of the plans, number one, is poor. Number two, they're inaccurate. And number three, they're confusing. In storm drain world, you start upstream and maybe you have a 10-inch pipe, and then you collect more water, so that turns into a 12-inch pipe, and that turns into an 18-inch pipe, and then that turns into a 24-inch pipe. I was looking at a set of plans last week where it went 24-inch, and then it went 15-inch. That's kind of weird. I mean, it's not going down a steep hill. You couldn't even justify it. Why is it going back to 15? Well, contractors may say, hey, that's what's on the plans. That's what I'm putting in. I don't care. And then here comes some sort of design flood event. The storm drain can't handle it. It floods parking lot. Somebody's yard gets flooded. Somebody's basement gets flooded. And all of a sudden, there's lawsuits, and that's not very sustainable, right? So let's do it right the first time. Let's at least, if we're gonna sign our name to a set of plans, put our stamp on it, let's make that worth something, not just I hurry up so I can get paid. And that's a challenge for all of you guys. I saw a hand.
Question.
Yes.
So you said that your company uses plastic pipes, which is an alternative to the traditional way. What are the advantages of that? How is that more sustainable?
No, I'm going to hit on that toward the end here. Would you mind if I defer that to a few more minutes from now? Okay. I will answer your question. If I, for some reason, gloss over it, please raise your hand again. But that's my intention, to discuss that. So other areas of study, what do you see as an opportunity to implement a sustainable effort or activity or improvement? Who's a structural engineer? Okay, well, there's a lot of you guys. There's a lot. All right. What could you do as a structural engineer to implement something along the lines of being more sustainable?
Substantive Second Cities become more greenplex
Okay,
with sky bridges and ecovents.
okay. Okay, so have you seen examples of that?
Yes.
Where?
So, in the city of Minneapolis, Minnesota, they have Skybridge network already.
Okay, so instead of, I gotta go to that office building across the street, I gotta get in the elevator, go all the way down the bottom, get out the front door, walk down to the crosswalk, cross the crosswalk, back the other way, back up to the top story of that other building. There's some intermediate level there, right? I don't have to get my car and drive, I don't have to, I mean, it's quick, it's easy. I like that, okay? In the back.
You can do anaerobic digesters, taking waste and making it into energy, producing energy from it. So like all the food waste we have, if we're not going to use it, we just might as well turn it into energy.
Okay. You know, we throw an awful lot of stuff in our landfills that quite frankly is reusable. And that is a huge element of sustainability. It's like that Jack Johnson 3R song. I don't know. Anybody know that song? Okay. That was happy when I first heard that song. But just making sure. So it's reduce and reuse and recycle, right? I mean, if there's stuff we can reuse, why are we burying it in a landfill? There was a time in the world where you just didn't need it. Yeah, you just got rid of it. You probably burned it or buried it in a hole. But these days, resources are limited. Items, common everyday items, groceries and products from stores like Target are increasingly more expensive because there's a strain on resources. So we have to find a way, even digest or decaying, not just decaying foods and other matter that gives off the ability to generate energy, right? So why wouldn't we? I think that is done in some places, but it probably could be done better.
I was just going to say to that point, I just met with an engineer 2 weeks ago where somewhere, I forget which city here in Utah, a wastewater treatment plant, they are planning to use algae to remove some of the phosphorus and nitrogen and all that kind of stuff that chemicals can do to some extent, but they were getting a 99% removal rate with this algae in the pipes as opposed to using any kind of chemicals downstream. So that kind of stuff is happening right now, and it's pretty interesting to see.
And the yellow shirt.
So, I'm in structural, you can study and become LEED certified. If you do that, you learn more about how to do energy efficient designs in your buildings.
Yeah. Energy efficiency is huge. So a while back, I worked up at Stantec in Salt Lake City, and while I was there, they were trying to earn some LEED points as an organization, not for their building per se, but they had some contractor come in and install these little, I don't know what they were, like generators or something, where every ballast for every light in the building all the heat that it would give off would be transferred into usable energy somewhere else in the building to run the servers or the lights themselves, I'm not sure. But they were recapturing all that energy rather than having to get so hot and just having to vent it out the building and out it goes into the outdoor air and out into the atmosphere. So energy efficiency is huge. And so there's LEED and there's also USGBC, Green Building Council. Anybody familiar with that? Green Building Council. So a lot of developers around the country, they go to great lengths to implement all of these LEED ideas, which is leadership in energy efficiency design. We're going to go with that for now. And if you get so many credits, you can get recognitions, you can get awards, you can get tax credits. So at some levels, at least our government agencies recognize the need to improve sustainability. So how about anybody from Water Resources? Anybody focusing on that here? Do you have any ideas about sustainability and what that means to your area of study?
As far as studies, no. What I would like to do is work in like global disaster relief So that's why I made the comment earlier about being able to like pass on the knowledge of how to run your system is because it plays a big role in that.
Yeah, okay, so let's take your idea of passing on knowledge of how to run a system. I'm trying to think of something really ancient, like some sort of IBM computer. I mean, if we had to fire that thing up or use a floppy disk, would most of us even know how to do that anymore? We'd have to find a disk drive, which I don't know where to find one. I don't know where you would find a disk drive. I mean, if you have a system in place that's so antiquated, or one single person who has all the institutional knowledge of how to run that system or facility, that's not very sustainable. You have to have a succession and plan in place so that you can continue to maximize your investment. I worked for a short while as a capital project manager in California, and I was working for a school district, helping them to build high schools and elementary school, and needed some big solar projects. And I'll tell you, running a solar array is not exactly easy. There's a lot to it, and it wasn't necessarily my responsibility to know how to run it. However, I had to be involved several times in helping other people relearn how to run it, as something minor would change and only one person knew how to do it, but the company that handed off the system to us, they didn't leave us complete information, and I'll tell you, it was a bit of a fiasco. So I think that is a very great consideration for being, maybe that's even part of the social aspect. It has to be usable. It has to be something that somebody can put in their hands and be end user friendly. So there's a few other hands up. Does somebody else want to add?
More of like not like an actual like object, but more of like an attitude kind of change where, because I feel like a lot of people, especially average people, don't really have like, are very indifferent with buildings and infrastructures. Like especially for me, I've seen this report card before, and like I notice it in these quite often, but I'm like, well, what does a typical A building look like? And like, how can we try to be caring more about like trying to strive for better structure? I feel like what we need quite a bit is more like funding and more support from the general public. And I think what would be very helpful would be like education of like understanding of what is like a good building, because I feel like people just think that like if a building stands, it's good. And in our case, that's not the case.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Awareness is huge. And that, what was the absence of awareness? Basically ignorance, right? And who's justified in being ignorant? I mean, we could probably make some gray areas there, but really, we should not be ignorant. We should try to be aware. There's one other hand over here.
I feel like a good example of that is segmentation of the dams. So dams are designed for 50-year periods, and they're set with their own expiration date. But they're not really given a way to either take down the dam or get rid of segmentation. So it's changing the attitude from let's build a dam with an expiration date versus let's build a dam that will continue to give us what we need with like these precautionary measures.
That's really, that's kind of like right up my alley. I was kind of a water resources guy, and I never did any dam designs, haha. But I did work with some people who were involved with that kind of stuff, and I was like, if you just took basic stormwater quality principles that are implemented in several cities across this country and applied that to maintenance of a large reservoir, you could eliminate that 50, you can make that 50-year service life a 1,000-year service life if you're willing to maintain a few common features. So anybody know what a forebay is? So what is a forebay?
Oh, well, that's where you'll kind of have it sink down at the bottom right at the front, so that way the sediment can settle down right there. So they're filling up the whole thing.
Exactly. So imagine you've got your big, huge lake, and you got one main river, maybe there's other rivers, but you got one main river coming into it. And where that main stem river enters the lake, maybe that makes a great opportunity to carve out kind of a pre-lake lake. That's what a forebay is. It's a body of water before the main body of water. And in that, you can collect all your sediment and trash, and you can clean that out, right? You can bypass it, put some tractors in there, get some dump trucks in there, you can clean it out and maintain it for however long you feel like funding the project. So, great answers, everybody. I appreciate that. So what can I do? What can you do? What can Brian do? This is a short list I thought of, so it's probably inaccurate and incorrect, but it's what I thought of, so we're going to go with it. The first is that you're going to educate yourself. You're obviously in a setting to do that, and while it's purely, mostly academic here, I hope that as you start getting in your internships and starting your careers, that you'll embrace the opportunity to educate yourself as to the way your professional setting operates. Every city, every county, every state, they all operate in terms of civil engineering and approvals and permitting, etc. They all operate differently. And you have to figure out how to make it work in that setting. And so you're going to constantly have to educate yourself. And by so doing, you'll be able to find those opportunities to make a difference. I encourage you to participate. I saw on your announcements that there's some ASCE officer openings. I hope people are excited to do that, because if I knew then what I know now, I would have raised my hand and said, oh yeah, I'm going for that, I'm going to do that, I'd like that on my resume. That'll help me advance my career. That's a great opportunity. And there's other professional affiliations and organizations, even community groups, where you can get involved. Even just getting involved in a discussion, in a debate at a city planning meeting or a county council meeting, whatever the case may be, participate. And that kind of leads right into Bart Simpson raising his hand. And what I mean by that is to speak up. Okay? There's a lot of big egos out there that are going to stand in your way in your career. They're not going to want to cede to your idea because it trumps their idea. And egos are huge. But you know what? Raise your hand and say what you have to say, and don't get brushed aside. Okay? Speak up. Be courageous. There's been a few times where I wish I had been more courageous with a thought that I had. I've learned where I really fight my battles now. But when I was first in my career, I'm just going to tell you, I knew that was a great idea, but that guy told me it wasn't. Look what they're doing now. That was my idea. I mean, that happens, I think, with a lot of people in a lot of professions. And not a singular case, but be courageous, speak up. To the point that was made a moment ago, we want to defy ignorance. So in continuing with the Bart Simpson theme, I will not expose the ignorance of the faculty. And I don't mean anything about BYU faculty, that's all I'm talking about here. That's all just Bart Simpson, okay? Defy ignorance. And this is something, as a company that makes sustainable products that are innovative and kind of new, we fight a lot of ignorance out there. Well, this is what we've always done. Well, I'm glad that's what you've always done, but your products are only giving you a 30-year service life. So you want to keep doing that? Yeah. Why? And there's never good answers, so I'll keep going with that. But defy ignorance. And when you see an opportunity or an option to do something different, do it. Finally, the most important thing I think you can do is to never stop learning. I think I've spoken to that enough. I'm not going to keep pounding on that. Just keep it in your mind. To your question about products we make that are sustainable. So, remind me your exact question.
So you said that plastic is an alternative to the traditional resource that you guys implement in your systems.
Yes.
How is that sustainable?
Okay, so the comment I made a moment ago, there's a lot of products that have been used for a long time. They were what was easy to make then, and they kind of become a habit. So products that we are making are innovative and they're new. Some of the advantages that we're bringing to the table are 100-year service life products. Okay, so plastic is inert; it does not corrode. It's very resistant to scour. It can resist all the live dead loading that's found in a public highway or freeway. So it absolutely meets the needs. It's a byproduct of other resources already being developed. It's from the fuel processing industry, right? That's where we get our resin from. And so this is just going to go into a landfill if we don't use it for some reason. This is just a byproduct of another process. So we're using something that's already being processed. We actually have a very large recycling stream. About 50, I don't say 50, 40 or so % of the pipe we sell in the United States is recycled. So that's, I'd be happy to elaborate more on that if you have more questions on it. But overall, I have found that my views towards sustainability match what my company does. My company wants to be innovative. They want to bring solutions to the table. They want to help improve those grades that you saw on the ASCD scorecard from being C's and D's to being B's and A's. So that we don't have to keep reinvesting and replacing and refixing the road, right? 1 year after it was installed.
About that report, I've heard a lot that the reason, or one of the reasons why they may be so low is because they want funding. They want the government to see, wow, they have property infrastructure, they need more money. So for that reason as well, I just don't know if it's good to like look at it all and see like, wow, we are bad at design things. So I think that Americans have done a good job with a lot of things.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, America has been a fruitful ground for innovation and new ideas to be implemented and used. I'm not going to argue with that at all. But I think when you look at what is the funding cycle, what is the revenue, what are the available resources versus what are the needs, what's falling apart faster than we can fix it. I don't know how accurate those grades are, but I can tell you, I can attest it's a concern. And you can talk to cities up and down the state of Utah who agree with that. So, Ryan has a Kahoot quiz set up. So without your phones, we'll do what we can. For the top 5 answers or so, we have some little options down here for some handouts.
Okay, anybody not done these before, don't know how to get to the site? Just go to kahoot.it. That's KAHOOT.it. Sorry about that. This is over here.
Thank you, Alec.
Hopefully we're good. Sorry about that. Sure, about half the campus now hears you. Okay. We'll give it a minute or two, let everybody log in here.
While he's getting this set up, if anybody has any questions, would like to talk to us, we'll hang around for a few minutes. So don't be shy, please. I hope you win so I can this.
All right, give it 30 more seconds and we'll get rolling here. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so it's a 10-question quiz. Like Cameron said, we have a couple of prizes for the top 5 here. So some of this was covered in the presentation, some of it's a little BYU trivia. Anyway, we'll go from there. This was on Cameron's graph there. There we go, 11.2 billion in the year 2100. All right, this is also timed, so the faster you answer the question, the more points you get. So. Okay, here we go. Number 2. Design service life of HDPE and polypropylene. Just mentioned right at the very end. Okay. 75 to 100-year service life. There are several DOTs that have ranked it at that rate, so it's not just something that we can pull out of the hat. Okay, Christian's still taking it. Okay, number 3, little BYU trivia here. Single season touchdown record. Jim McMahon had it. It's not the single game record, it's the single season. And it's not an overall record either. Okay, new leader here we go. Number 4. This is a little Utah. This wasn't covered at all, but there's some new regulations coming up so that, you know, as you start designing things in the future, these will be required. There we go. A little bit of giving, but, you know. So water quality maintenance agreements, O&M manuals, on-site retention, retention, all these are parts of the new MS4 regulation that are going to be going into effect next year. Okay. This was on a couple of the different slides, or close to. Alright. Okay. I started making pipes about 50 years ago. I started out as a single wall, just for agriculture applications, and it's progressed to all kinds of different products now. Okay, Levi's still on top. Here we go. More BYU trivia. 2004, 2007, it was still in the top 10. You guys killing it. Okay, we talked about the recycling programs that ADS is a part of. How many million pounds were recycled last year of plastic? Okay, 285 million pounds of plastic were recycled and put into our pipe products last year. There's a division of ADS, it's called Greenland Polymers. News, all of you that read plastic news. That's where that comes from. It's in the top 5 highest plastic recycling companies in the nation. Oh, it's getting closer. 3 more.
Old school?
All right, there we go. Let's get that. Okay, for a hat, who can tell me first what the short film was called that it was based off of? I saw that hand first.
Phone call?
No? Aluka, there you go. All right, we'll save one of these for you. Okay, 2 more questions. Okay, had this slide up for about 10 minutes. Okay, there we go. Right now it's have any of you seen that graph where it talks about the great challenge, where it's got the infrastructure needs going up at a steep incline and then the funding at a much smaller incline? That is what our challenge is to get those 2 lines close together. How can we, and that's the next question, how do we improve that grade? How do we get to where we need to be? Okay, there we go. Innovate. Got to keep improving. Got to keep getting new things done. All right. 78. There's our top 3 right here. Kristen pulled it out. Okay, if you're on this top 3, please come down.
Way to go, Adam.
I don't know if it's top 5. Oh wait, here we go.